Zadondaney, Electro Ninja here, and welcome back to Electro Ninja's Lab. In today's video, we are going to be talking about Kingdom Hearts again. Now, the reason that I wanted to talk about this theory is because that I made this theory is because simply many people know about the theory that each of the five foretellers, as well as Lushu and the Master of Masters, represent the seven deadly sins within the Kingdom Hearts universe. Which, big whoop, that's not that hard to actually pinpoint. It still kind of feels a little iffy to me, but it's not that big of a deal. But that theory got me thinking about two other theories. The first of which being, what if the 20 pieces that make up the Keyblade are not actually 7 and 13, but 7, 7, and 6? Well, think about it. First off, we have the seven. We have the seven Seekers of Darkness, which are the foretellers and so on, and then there is the seven Guardians of Light / seven Hearts. But then there could be 6 in the middle, and we'll talk about that in a future video. But with that theory, I got thinking, what exactly are the 7 Guardians of Light? Because there is actually a concept in the Catholic Church that there are opposites to the 7 deadly sins, that being the 7 virtues, which combat basically the 7 deadly sins. These virtues are, let me just get the thing, humility, generosity, chastity, kindness, meekness, temperance, and diligence. And just looking at that, it makes me think, there is actually that certain aspect with each of the Guardians. And it took me a little bit to actually figure out exactly what was going on here, but the fact is that a lot of these traits could be attributed to each of the Guardians, and to an extent, each of the Princesses of Heart, which I just have to say is kind of interesting, to be completely honest. We're going to go in a bit of a weird order in this because, it's going to be really tricky. But we'll start off and go through each of these seven virtues, and talk about who exactly is the holder of that specific virtue, with both the Guardian of Light, as well as what Princess of Heart I actually think is going to be the one who holds it. The problem is that with the 7 Princesses of Heart, it's kind of hard to say any of these virtues, because many of them share all of them. But yeah, let's start out with the easy ones. First off, humility. I would actually give this to Cinderella as for the Princesses of Heart, which, no surprise there. As someone who continued to be a servant to her terrible family, and even though she was basically a princess, she didn't ever fight against it. She still was humble. It's honestly a bit interesting, to say the least. But the Guardian of Light might surprise you. I'd actually give this to Sora, as basically, even though he is the most powerful of all of the Guardians of Light, he doesn't really show it. He doesn't really talk about it. He focuses more on just doing his duty, rather than being super proud and obnoxious about how he is the most powerful of the Guardians of Light. And let's be honest, he basically is. So Yeah, that's interesting. Now, as for diligence, this one is actually really interesting, and I would give this to Kyrie on both fronts. Primarily because I don't want to have to give it to her. I don't want to have to give her two different ones. But considering the fact that she is extremely diligent, waiting for Sora, waiting for being able to save him, but also striving to save him multiple times throughout his journeys, it's rather interesting. And she's really the only one that I feel is as diligent as she is. No one really holds that mark except for her, which is kind of odd to talk about. Now, this next one, Temperance, I'm giving to Riku. Riku for the Seven Guardians. I'm not 100% certain on the actual Princess of Heart, but we'll talk about that in just a sec. I would give, like I said, I would give this to Riku, Temperance. And the reason I give it to him is because the fact that he uses both light and darkness and has to be cautious to not use too much of either. And unlike the rest of the Guardians of Light, he's not really he's the only one who's not solely focused on one or the other, and not super focused on any of them. Instead, he keeps a balance between both of them. And while he leans a little bit more towards the light, he still uses the darkness throughout the entire series. Even in Kingdom Hearts 3, in which he is basically he is a guardian and probably one of the top guardians, he's still keeping that balance. He's still using the darkness to a certain degree, but also using the light. In fact, if I were to actually, I would probably actually give him a bit of a different one. I would actually put him in the in-between section in a future video, but obviously I'm not going to do that right now. Now, as for Temperance in the Seven Princesses of Heart. So, the first thing that we should know is that I'm only counting the ones from the original group. So, Belle, Snow White, Alice, Kyrie, Jasmine, Aurora, and Cinderella. But figuring out exactly who would be Temperance is kind of tricky, because none of them really have that gluttonous situation, but I'd also kind of avoid giving it to either Snow White or Alice specifically. So I think I'll have to come back to this, because in all cases I would say that these ones are just really hard to depict on who exactly would be Temperance. To a certain degree, I would almost say Belle as of right now, but at the same time, I'm not 100% certain. Let's move on. To actually meekness, which is the opposite of anger for this situation. Which, basically, the thing that I had to decide for this is who is the least likely to go to anger. Obviously, Belle, Alice, and I'd say even Jasmine are basically completely out of this. As each of them do go to anger multiple times. So I would actually give it to Aurora, who is very meek. I mean, the problem is that she is basically asleep throughout the entire Kingdom Hearts games. And that's not a joke. When we first meet her in Birth by Sleep, asleep throughout the entire game, and is basically stuck in this sleep forever. The only time that she ever awakens throughout the entire series is in Kingdom Hearts 1, and in that part, she's only there for a short amount of time, and you only get to speak to her in a little bit. So, yeah. So, yeah. As for the Guardian, I would actually give this to Axel. Of all of the characters who you would think should be angry all the time, he has lost three, four friends. He has lost the Seekers of Darkness. That being, of course, Roxas, Shion, Ventus, and also frickin' Isa. All four of those people, his best friends, were either lost because of a Seeker of Darkness, or honestly, there's a lot of reasons why each of them were lost. And yet, he never succumbs to hatred. He never succumbs to wrath. And that's why I give him meekness, because honestly, everyone else gets angry. Even Mickey, to a degree, gets angry in the series. Which, what? That's a surprise. So yeah, that's gonna be tricky. Now I'm just gonna do Chastity really quick, because that one's basically just, you have to give it to someone, and there's only really two people that you can give it to. First off, we're giving it to Mickey, because if we don't, then there's gonna be some problems there. Disney is just gonna get on our case, even though he does have a wife. Yeah. So there's a thing. And then also I'm gonna give it to Alice, because of the fact that, well, she's a kid. And giving it to someone else just feels wrong as of right now. Basically, everyone fulfills this role, but that's probably the easiest one to deal with. So, yeah. Next up, let's talk about generosity. Generosity is tricky. Especially for the Guardians, and so is kindness, but generosity and kindness are really tricky, especially for both the Guardians and the Princesses of Heart, because basically all of them have that. But I'm gonna give generosity to Snow White, of all people. I know that may sound a bit odd to give it to Snow White, but honestly, she is probably the most generous of everyone. Helping out the 7 dwarves, but also helping out all of the animals and stuff. She has helped out so many people, and it's just kind of odd, to say the least, that, well, she's done so much for this world, and yeah. So Snow White, surprisingly. But then who gets it with the 7 Guardians? Because the fact is that there's only 2 left, that being both Aqua and Ventus. So who gets generosity and who gets kindness? Well, I'm actually gonna give generosity to, well, Ventus. I know it's odd, but I give it to Ventus mostly because he is extremely generous with his friendship giving. Basically, and basically helping out people whenever he can. And to a certain degree, Sora also fulfills this, but Ventus helps people out way more than Aqua does. And that's the big reason why I give him generosity. Aqua is kind, for sure, but she doesn't necessarily go out of her way to help people. Basically, throughout all of Birth by Sleep, she is only going to help... She only really immediately goes to help people when it's... when either Ven or Terra are involved with the situation. Or she realizes that it's a frickin' Princess of Heart, and she's like, oh, well, I better help that out. But avoids a lot of the other people throughout the series. Sure, she helps, but she doesn't really help completely out of the goodness of her heart. Or just because. While Ven, basically, as soon as he sees that someone needs help, seeing that there's unverse somewhere, he rushes in. And sure, Aqua does do that to a certain degree, but Ventus immediately jumps at any situation to help out. Which, yeah, go figure. Um, so, yeah, apparently Snow White and Ventus are similar, so that's a weird statement to say. So now comes kindness. Now, I know I gave Temperance to Belle, but at this point, since kindness is obviously going to be going to Aqua, I honestly don't really know what to do about the last two Princess of Heart, Jasmine and Belle. Now, I would actually say that Belle probably deserves kindness more than anyone. Because she jumps... she basically... If we're looking at the movies, then obviously her kindness is probably more than almost everyone else. Let's just be honest, Jasmine is not overly kind. But the problem is that we're looking at this via Kingdom Hearts. And the fact is that with Jasmine in Kingdom Hearts, her entire story is completely different. And I do mean completely different. Aladdin never asks to be a prince. I mean, I think he does in Chain of Memories, but no, he doesn't ask for that within Kingdom Hearts 1. Which, what? So, never in the world does Jasmine have to do that. But, never is she a jerk to him. Which is weird. It's really complicated. Belle is just such an issue because of the fact that she is we don't know any of her backstory. We don't know why she came to the actual castle. Because basically, all this time, the two, Beast and her, are in love the entire time. And that's just a fact. There's no real evidence that she was kidnapped or her father was kidnapped. Because, well... there's no real conflict with any actual villain there. And it just confuses me because I just don't know who to actually say what to do with that. And Beast in Kingdom Hearts 1 is only there to save her. He's not trying to bring her back because she's his prisoner or whatever. No, he's bringing her back because he loves her. And also, in Kingdom Hearts 2, she kind of has that little trait of just being kind. She's trying to be kind to each of the other people, and as such, I think that she may be the person to have kindness. But at the same time, there's Jasmine. And neither one of them really feels like Temperance is the right situation. The problem is that gluttony, this is the opposite of gluttony. And neither one of them are very gluttonous. Or, I'm going to say greedy is probably the best situation to explain. Because Jasmine is actually a princess. So, it's kind of hard to say that she wouldn't. I don't know. So, for right now, I'm gonna just say that either one could be either one. And I honestly think that when we actually get the other 7 Princes of Heart actually clarified, I think that that is actually going to make things a lot easier for deciding who exactly deserves each role. Because the fact is that we do have Anna and Elsa, which Elsa is a really hard one to actually pinpoint, but probably Temperance is what I would give her. And Anna, I would say probably Kindness. But then there's obviously Rapunzel, and she's just a huge kick in the pants for what exactly we should give her. And more than likely, Moana is going to be added to this, and I don't know who the last one, maybe who the rest of them are. Maybe Merida is my best guess, but at this point, we don't know who the new seven princesses are, except for like the four. I mean, sure, Kyrie is still a princess, but then everyone else, we have no idea who is actually going to be taking up these roles. I mean, I'm partial to Alice still being a princess of heart, but the fact is that she has changed so much in her recent movies that I don't know if she would actually keep that role. So, I don't know. It's tricky, to say the least, to see where exactly we're going to be going from here on out. But I think we are going to enjoy a lot more of what they have in store for us. And I think that it's definitely something to be watching for, is who exactly are the new seven virtues going to? I mean, I'm still going to say that Kyrie is keeping diligence no matter what happens, but I think that we need to actually pay attention to this and figure out who exactly is keeping each one. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and ring that notification bell. We are going to be coming back in a few days, maybe tomorrow actually, maybe even later today, I'm not 100% certain, to discuss what is going on with those 6 Guardians of the In-Between. So yeah, look forward to that coming very soon. But anyways, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you guys have any thoughts or theories, please leave them down in the comments below. And of course, if you guys do want to support the channel even more, then definitely head down to the description and check out all of our links down there, including our social medias, our other channels, and ways that you can support us financially, including our merch store, our Patreon, and our book. Big thank you to our current patron, Sheeny, and I am gonna get some rest. But anyways, guys, I've been Electric Ninja, and I will see you guys next time. But on!